Florida State loses its quarterback commitment, but might have a replacement in line.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, longtime recruiting analyst and college football writer. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Tramell Jones has decommitted from the Noles. I'd heard rumors about it over the last week, and yesterday I was told it was all but imminent. Just didn't know when it would happen. Well, this morning it became official on Thursday, November 14th. And to be honest with you, considering Florida State just got rid of its receivers coach, O-line coach / OC, that's not shocking. By the way, Florida State's 1-9, so it's not like he's attached to something that was going great. So he's headed to where? Probably Florida before anybody asks. And I'm going to break down his situation, and then I'm going to break down the player that I think is just as good, if not better, and Florida State might walk into something that's golden. So let's start off with Tramell Jones. Number one here, this is a prospect that has the ability to make players miss, extend plays, and he's very accurate. I've seen Tramell play several times since his freshman year of high school. I actually saw the first game that he really broke out when he was playing for Mandarin High School against Ed White, had a huge game as freshman, won a quarterback battle in that game, and he's been the guy ever since. Now, the question with him has always been, how big is he going to get? How much can he handle at the college level? And that's to be remain undecided because he's still in high school. But this is a good football prospect. I know a lot of Noles fans will be disappointed that Jones has decommitted. I totally get that. First off, he's a great kid, great family, great dad, whole 9 yards. He deserves your respect. And obviously with the turmoil in Tallahassee, again, this should not be considered a shock. It's not what you want to hear, but reality in college football involves, let's just be honest, at minimum 3 kids a year that are going to decommit. Some schools will have upwards of 10. The flip-flopping in recruiting is common. And then when you add all of the circumstances that Florida State is going through right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State approached that number for their entire class of 10 before this December 4th signing date gets here. So you're losing him, and looking at Tramell, just to give you a prospect overview, I might as well just put it on the screen for those of you on YouTube. It's an interesting player because everybody's got a different view of him. I mean, the rankings for Tramell Jones are really, really different. I don't know why it's that way, but nonetheless, it is. It's been that way for quite a while. So, all right. I don't know why Rivals has him 36th player in the nation and nobody else has him in the top 250, but they do. They have him as the number 4 quarterback. ESPN has him number 9 quarterback, 24/7, 21, and on 3, the 31st. So the player that is going to be coming to Florida State hopefully will be as good, if not better. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, just wanted to give an overview of him. Am I shocked at the timing of this? Is probably my biggest question about Tramell and why something I think that a lot of you probably have as well. I'm happy that it happened now. And it's going to be discussed a little bit here when I discuss the other quarterback. But there needs to be a baseline. He left without a coordinator, but this is where you get into the gray area. I'm sure that Tramell and or members of his family, those around the program at Mandarin, have spoken to people at Florida State. Hey, what's going on with the coordinator situation? Who's QB coach going to be? Is it still going to be the same guy next? All these kinds of questions, and they're verified. I understand them, have to happen. It's good for Florida State that he's cutting bait now because that gives you plenty of time to recruit Carter Smith, and that's the kid I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And if you do not get that done now, like if he'd have decided, let's say today's 14th, if he'd even waited 3-4 more days, it matters because you got another weekend coming up, an off week. You could have Carter Smith visit or somebody else, maybe have a JUCO kid, you bring it, whatever it is, you could make plans at least in scouting the position. Now there's no question about it. Secondarily, with the situation with Carter Smith, gives you more time to recruit him and everybody else. Not that they didn't know about him. Carter's from the Fort Myers area, so he's a young man familiar with Florida State and vice versa. But anybody they recruit, it's a short window, man. December 4th, the signing date, for those you don't know, this is the first year for it being the first Wednesday in December. Prior, over the last several years, it had been the third Wednesday. Doesn't sound like much, but 2 weeks in recruiting is an enormous time frame to lose because the coaching carousel is just starting with the Noles firing multiple coordinators plus Dugans. You're going to have kids and their parents that want to know the coach and have a relationship with him. Well, you're really not going to have a full-blown relationship with somebody you get to hire now, but it's even reduced more because of those 2 weeks. So at least you get a head start, and Norvell may not be able to announce publicly, okay, this is going to be the situation with the coordinator. Just use it as an example. We can't announce it. It's got to go through the background check. And for those you don't know, I've discussed that on several shows, and I'll discuss it again now. It is a major hindrance for recruiting. You can tell coaches on your staff, you can tell players on your team, and you can tell recruits, hey, this is going to be the guy. We can't announce it due to state provinces. You have to go through this process with the background checks, blah, blah, blah. We're a state university. That's the way it is. And they're right. That's 2-3 weeks after you make the decision and all the paperwork is. It is slow. So while I understand Norvell wants to get the decisions out of the way, it's going to be an albatross for recruiting. And every school will go through this. Florida State was smart to at least get out ahead of it, to get on the trail for coaches. It's going to help them in the long term. I'm completely convinced of that. But short term, this is going to be difficult. Next up, I'm going to define Carter Smith, a kid that I know very well, a quarterback that is ranked nationally. He is one of the best QBs that I've seen for the class of 25, and that is next up here at Locked on Seminoles. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. To do it, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So who is Carter Smith? Plays at Bishop Verot down in the Fort Myers area. They're actually, at the time of this podcast, preparing for a playoff game against Tarpon Springs. I'm curious to see how that goes. He's not in a big school division or anything, but this is a program that's got some talent. They've had some guys over the years sign with Florida, Miami, etc. I'm really interested to see how they develop through the playoffs. He's got a couple of decent receivers. Nobody great, like nobody Florida State's recruiting, I don't think. But watching the film, that's a pretty good football team. They only lost 2 games this year, and Carter runs a lot of the same stuff, honestly, that many of the college football programs do with their offensive schemes. He's 6'3", about 190 pounds. I saw him last year. I haven't seen him play live this season, but I saw him last year, Elite 11, etc. He had pretty good arm strength, but he needed to add weight. He was 175-ish, I would guess, maybe 180, but he's put on some weight. And most notably about him, I'll go over some others, but the arm strength that I watched on his film, and I'm really glad that I watched some senior film before I did today's show, took the time to do it, it's much improved. He was a pretty strong arm quarterback last year for a kid in his junior season, but now it's a different deal. Much different deal. He threw on the first play of his highlight. If you go look him up on Huddle, the first play you're going to see is a bomb that he throws right from the goal line, and it hits on the 50-yard line, and it's a money shot. He's not like winding up, like taking 2 curl hops, throwing it from the fence in the outfield, trying to get a guy out at third base or something. He stepped into his throw, had a normal delivery, and still delivered a deep shot on the money. That means your arm has just gotten stronger. I don't think he would have made that throw a little over a year ago. So I actually saw him about a year and a half ago, would have been spring of his sophomore year at Elite 11 in Orlando. And good player, was accurate and everything, very mobile, but the arm strength stood out. Here are a few of the other things that I think are very noticeable about him. And to be honest, this is only going to get better because he's about 190 and he's 6'3". Still a lanky kid, could add weight, 205, 210 easily. I don't know if he'll want to get larger than that once he reaches college, but Carter is definitely interested in Florida State, vice versa, from all that I've heard. And the Noles are probably the best, quote unquote, big name program, historically speaking, not this year, but historically speaking, that's available, and it's in state. He was decommitted from Michigan about a month ago, if that. The whole Bryce Underwood thing, if you don't know who that is, he's probably the top quarterback recruit in the country. He's committed to LSU, but he's from Michigan. The Wolverines started tinkering around with that, and then Carter decommitted, so I really don't blame him. And he's a kid that's ranked really high. So let's just put up, for anybody on YouTube, and I'll read these off. Carter is, how do I put it? Probably a little bit undervalued in some ways because he plays at a school that doesn't get a ton of attention. He's not going to have a lot of guys go out there and scout him, but here are his numbers overall. All right, let me get this up here. Carter Smith's national ranking includes the following numbers. First off, as on three, I'll just start at the top. On three has him as 196th player in the country. 24/7 doesn't have him in the top 250 and a 3-star, so it's a little bit unusual with that. They got him as the 20th quarterback, though. ESPN has him at 155, and Rivals has him at 95th. ESPN's they got him as third best quarterback, even though he's 155, while Rivals has him as the fourth best at 95. Take it for what it's worth. The things that I like about him best are pretty simple. Number one, again, it's the mobility. He can run RPO, spread, get out on the perimeter, and get after it. And I think that he's a kid that reminds me, as far as recent quarterbacks, probably the one the most, ironically, because he was committed there, is former Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy. He had plenty of mobility, would annoy you. Carter's just faster in a straight line, probably a little shiftier, but he's a one-cut-and-go guy. J.J., they didn't ask to run a ton, but he could. They just didn't want to get hurt, which I really don't blame them for that either. But Michigan did a good job with him on bootlegs, waggles, things like that, out of a pro-style offense, and occasionally use him in the shotgun. At Verot, Carter plays in the shotgun pretty much exclusively. They might do some stuff under center for quarterback sneak or something, but it is a pure spread, and he's just a glorified version of McCarthy in the run game. But McCarthy's probably further along at this point in the pass game because he played at IMG his senior year. He's had more people around him. But Carter's pretty accurate. This is a kid that I can see being a top 100 prospect. I have no problem with him being ranked where he is by Rivals. I don't. I think he's a top 200 kid conservatively. And I'll add the following about why I like him. To be a quarterback, it's not just about what you do at practice, with the media, and on game day. How you interact with your teammates, coaches, fans, boosters, etc., fair or not, is evaluated differently at quarterback. He's a very easy young man to get along with, extremely well-spoken, got all the intangibles that you want there, has some moxie, if you will. He can adjust. And here's something really interesting. The nicest guy you're going to meet. As I was going through his huddle film, there's a play where they just run a toss sweep. And as soon as he pitches the ball, he takes off and gets out in front. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to try to kind of get in the way of somebody. I was wrong. He blasts a guy and decleats him. And it wasn't like he caught him off guard. They were running at each other and he just decleated the guy. I'm like, okay, that's another sign that he's hit the weight room. I mentioned his arm strength. Well, his upper body power, his hips, his hamstrings, all of that have to be. I mean, he just planted this dude. I'm like, that is a sign that he's not only a physical kid, he is dedicated to his craft. So all the moxie in different ways. I hadn't seen that part of him because I've only seen him in passing situations, but that was good to see. Going back to the film, he isn't afraid of contact and quite honestly has killed some teams. And I think his stats, while not incredible as a rusher, do give a sense of what he's capable of. He's had a game this year with 131 yards. He's got a couple touchdown runs. They don't use him all the time, but Venice, he ran for 155. They used him a lot in that game. Venice obviously didn't have an answer for it. But even against Jesuit, who's a good team, defensively extremely well coached, Tampa Jesuit, they're a perennial playoff contender. He had 33 yards rushing against them and a couple of scores. I'm sorry, he has 11 touchdowns. He has 2 games over 100. He's got 11 scores. He's a guy that they can use in the red zone at that level. I'm sure Florida State or any other school that Carter ends up signing with would have that option as well. Continuing down the list, I just think the RPO game for him, once you have more of a true sense of the offense, let's say it goes to Florida State, they've got a lot of speed at receiver. There's going to be chances for him to make a lot of big plays. He's a little more advanced than most guys post-snap read. He still has a ways to go, and I'll talk about that in a second. But you can just get him in an RPO situation where he's reading 1 or 2 guys. Carter is a really intelligent kid. This is a kid that could play early from that sense. Reminds me a lot of Kromenhoek from that perspective, who I also know very well. I don't think he'll have a hard time picking it up. Second-year player, he'd be a guy that could at least compete for playing time. I think the difference between Luke now and next year is another example. It'll be vastly different. So I'm curious how fast he picks that up, and then some of the more complicated stuff when you're going against teams that show 3 high shell, and then after the snap, they jump into man coverage and they're in single high, something like that, or they run a fire zone. Those things he still has to learn. There's no question. That's something he needs to learn. Still going to have to get bigger and stronger, add 15 more pounds. That's part of it. And while Carter's footwork is good, I think there's still a ways to go, because it's just about throwing the football. This happens all the time. Getting a pass off just 0.2 of a second faster can be the difference between winning or losing a football game. It could be the result of an interception if you don't get it off quicker, or it can be a touchdown pass that was fitted into a small window. Just little things like that. He's got a pretty good release. He's got natural footwork. He's a very good athlete, but it's just fine tuning. So that's what I see with him. Next up, we're going to talk about getting Carter Smith, what it would mean for Florida State's class, because quite frankly, it is going to be difficult to finish out the Florida State class without a quarterback, and he would make a huge difference. That is next on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? If not, you should. It's an easy way to find out about games, whether it's NBA, whether it's college football, whatever, at the touch of a button right there on your phone. There's also a thing called Gametime Picks, which filters out all the fluff, and it shows you all the incredible deals right there on your phone. So from my experience, that's a great option. But the number one thing I like about it is also something about having it on your phone, and that is how fast it is. I not only want to find the game, you just type in Florida State or whatever it is you're looking for. You can click on a game and see a seat, select it, and you can get the view from that seat right on your phone or tablet, whatever it is that you're using. It's really, really great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. It's not easy to win football games without quarterbacks. Think about this. If Florida State ends up with Brock Glenn, Luke Kromenhoek, and then they sign Carter Smith, that would be 3 years in a row that they not only got a quarterback, but a highly rated one. A guy that was a serious competitor in the Elite 11. A guy that was a serious talent that can run the offense that Mike Norvell knows how to run. And quite honestly, college football's best programs run, and that's a spread with a quarterback that can threaten the perimeter of a defense or just take off on a broken play right up the middle. Those are all really good signs. But as of right now, on November 14th, the Noles do not have Carter, and they're hoping to get him back on campus. I'm sure he's visited a couple of times at least. I know he's been there from talking to him before face-to-face, but let's see how that goes. I'll get into that once that comes about. Need to get some confirmation from him before that goes into play. But this is very key. If they could get Carter, let's say in the next 7-8 days, not only could you help solidify and add players to the 2025 Florida State class, you could also help prevent guys like a Kevin Wynn or somebody else decommitting. It is paramount that you have the bell cow quarterback in a class, especially when things are going wrong like they are right now at Florida State University. He would be something to bolster class. Personality, the position, obviously, the ranking, all of it comes into play. They could get him committed, let's say a week from today, just use it easily 1 week. Maybe he comes in and he's the guy that is standing around on the sidelines with some of the other recruits next weekend when they play Charleston Southern. That would be really good. If they could do that, excuse me, maybe they could even get a receiver recruit. Like right now, Florida State doesn't even have a wide receiver in this recruiting class. That is really shocking, but it's still true. Do you think any receiver wants to come right now in general? Probably not. Throw on the fact that Tramell is no longer in the class. It makes it even more difficult. No two positions are connected like quarterback and receiver. So Carter Smith would be a boom for the Noles. There is no doubt about it. And I'm here to tell you this is a kid that could fit in on and off the field and would be very good for the program. They could walk into one here. A local kid, uncommitted, was prior committed to Michigan. He's got a ton of offers, nationally ranked, fits the offense. I mean, he is what they need. It would be great for Florida State to get him. We'll see how it goes. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. I'd also appreciate it if you haven't already, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and subscribe to this podcast. If not, please do. And I'd really love it if you'd share and get me out in front of some more Noles fans. That'd be great. You can find me at FBScout_Florida on X. I'll be around talking Noles football on and off all day, every day. So make sure you check it out. And next, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Stano. They're talking a lot of different things going on, recruiting, transfer portal, and everything else that's getting ready to come up. That's a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about here on Locked On Seminoles too. Everybody have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.